Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. She survived a deadly fire at a Gastown hotel.
I want them to say, yeah, it was their fault. I want them to know what it's like to be us for the last year.
Now a former resident is filing a class action lawsuit. Also, fighting against intimate partner violence in Canada.
They helped pull me out of that trauma cycle.
And the call for a national offenders registry. Plus, back in port.
We just walked in downtown Victoria.
BC's cruise ship season begins, and with it, hopes for businesses.
We should have a stronger season than last year.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Anita is away this week. A year after she escaped a deadly fire at a Vancouver SRO, a tenant is suing the city, the owner and operator of the former Winters Hotel. As Joel Ballard reports, the lawsuit comes amid calls for more accountability.
1 year ago, Jen Hansma lost everything. Her belongings, her home, her young cat, all gone in the Winters Hotel fire.
It's the scariest thing that I've ever been through in my whole entire life.
2 people died and more than 140 were displaced. Now, Hansma has filed a proposed class action lawsuit against the building's owner, the operators of the residence, and the city of Vancouver.
I want them to say, yeah, it was their fault. I want them to know what it's like to be us for the last year, how many of us have panic attacks and how our anxiety is up through the roof, how most of us don't sleep anymore.
3 days before the fatal blaze, a smaller fire broke out in the building. In that case, the fire alarm didn't go off. The claim says the fire was doused by sprinklers and residents who used fire extinguishers. It alleges city firefighters turned off the sprinklers, but no one took steps to reset the sprinkler or fire alarm systems or replace fire extinguishers before the fire occurred 3 days later. The residents had no warnings about the fire and no means to fight it.
We may be low income, but we are people too, and we deserve the right to live a comfortable life.
Today, survivors and housing advocates gathered to remember those who lost their lives and to call for change.
If we don't do something about this, all of these buildings could come down and catastrophic fires would take even more lives.
And advocates say last year's fire has left lasting scars and added to the homelessness crisis.
For many of the residents of that SRO, there is deep, deep trauma in that and a lot of fear about being placed into another unsafe home.
The lawsuit alleges the owners and operators failed to ensure fire safety measures and the city failed to enforce fire safety regulations, although none of the claims have been tested in court. Atira declined an interview, but in a statement said it is focused on the tenants affected by the fire and extends support to those fighting for justice. The City of Vancouver did not provide an interview or statement to CBC News. The province has said a coroner's inquest into the deaths will be conducted, but no dates have been set. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
Police are searching for suspects after a person was stabbed yesterday at a New Westminster SkyTrain station.
At this initial stage of the investigation, it would appear that an altercation occurred between 2 groups of individuals, resulting in the injuries to the victim. Investigators are asking any witnesses that may have seen something that have yet to speak to police to please come forward and contact our investigators.
It happened last night around 11 o'clock at the Columbia station. The victim was sent to hospital in serious condition but is expected to recover. Officers say the suspects are young people. They don't know how many were involved in the fight in total, but they're looking for 2 men and a young woman. The first is a man described between 18 and 20 years old with a thin mustache. The second man had short, dark hair and was carrying a satchel, while the third suspect is a girl between 16 and 18 years old. Today marks the first day of what's expected to be a record-breaking cruise ship season in BC. The Sapphire Princess docked in Victoria today before it heads to Vancouver. As Mira Baines reports, it's a welcome arrival for local businesses.
A record 331 cruise ships are scheduled to visit the West Coast this year, bringing back tourists and tourism dollars, following a 2-year temporary shutdown during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Last year, cruise ships once again resumed their trips to BC, and this season, between April and September, cruise ships are expected to bring 1 million people to Vancouver's downtown core and about 850,000 to Victoria.
So it was a good time to call.
I've only been to Canada once, and that was Niagara Falls about 40 years ago. So this will be nice.
We just walked in downtown Victoria, and yeah, hopefully it's not great. Yeah. And maybe go to Chinatown to have some food.
The cruise ship industry's economic contribution to the province is estimated to be $2.7 billion, according to the Tourism Association of BC.
During the pandemic, we didn't see that injection of money, so it's great to have it back again, to keep the economy buoyant, to keep all the amenities that are generated by the cruise ship passengers and the money they inject into our economy.
Tourism operators in Victoria were eagerly awaiting passengers today.
We should have a stronger season than last year, because what we're noticing is that the boats are bigger. Not necessarily that there are more, but that they are bringing more people to the city. So we're excited about that.
One of the biggest criticisms of the industry has been the spread of COVID aboard ships during the pandemic and its environmental impact, something the province is trying to reduce. Last week, the BC government announced $9 million towards providing electric plug-ins to provide clean energy to cruise ships at Ogden Point. It's to reduce emissions. Tomorrow, the Sapphire Princess arrives in Vancouver, with another ship arriving the day after. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Bus trips, meanwhile, are set to become more frequent on Vancouver Island as well. BC Transit has introduced Greater Victoria's first designated rapid transit service. The new Blink Rapid Bus, Route 95, runs between downtown Victoria at the terminus on Government Street all the way to Langford. It's designed to provide faster and more frequent service. Riders can expect a bus at least every 15 minutes. It does replace the old Route 50, but makes fewer stops.
I come up here to do shopping and stuff like that. With a couple of the stops skipped, it's a lot better now, for sure. I like it. It's way quicker.
I think the only way you'll ever convince people to truly use public transportation is by putting more on the road. And sometimes 10-15 minutes is too long.
BC Transit plans to provide similar rapid bus service between Uptown and the University of Victoria, as well as between downtown Victoria and the Swartz Bay Ferry Terminal. No word on when those buses will start running. Former SFU football players are taking their fight against the shutdown of the program to court. The head of the SFU Football Alumni Society says they plan to file an injunction to try to stop the university's plan to end the decades-long athletic program. That could happen tomorrow or Thursday. Last week, SFU announced it was shutting the team down after 57 years after it wasn't invited to play in an NCAA conference in the U.S. for next season. The society argues the student athletes held up their end by playing football for this university, and SFU must now do the same.
There's definitely been no transparency, in my opinion, and a lack of inclusion. So, you know, to say that they've made a decision that's best fitted for the student athletes is completely untrue.
Bailey says alumni have contacted the U.S. conference where the Red Leafs were supposed to play, as well as Canadian conferences. The CFL commissioner says he's disappointed with the university's decision, while BC Lions owner Amr Doman says they will do what they can to salvage the season. CBC News requested an interview with SFU president Dr. Joy Johnson, but has not yet heard back. Post-secondary students in BC will be getting more help to pay for their education. The provincial government has announced an increase to financial aid. It's the first boost to weekly student load maximums in more than a decade. Starting in August, single students would see their aid double to $220 a week, while students with dependents would see theirs double to $280. Also, starting in August, there will be changes to student loan repayment terms to align with Ottawa's repayment assistance program. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Joe, it's spring. Got a little of this, got a little of that.
Seriously, little of everything today, starting with the heavy cold rain, hail,
joyful.
And I know, and now the beautiful cumulus dotting the blue skies. and we're waiting for the showers to return. So yes, literally everything, and that's just the south coast. Taking you across to the warnings we still have in place. Highway 3 looking to get an additional 5 to 10 centimeters tonight. The rainfall warnings have ended for the Kootenays. This whole storm system, which is our stalled out atmospheric river from the weekend that hit the south coast, that's hopping over the Rockies, bringing fresh snow and winds to Alberta. We are seeing a lot of activity tonight, sort of directed by this low sitting off the island. That's what's pushing a fresh band of moisture into Metro Vancouver this evening. So we're not in the clear yet. I've got a great looking Wednesday forecast for you, but notice the rain just coming off of Nanaimo, getting ready to cross the strait. That will fill in the next hour or so for Metro Vancouver. So be prepared this evening. Could still be quite a soggy one. And I just want to take you over to the interior as well. Lots of action, snow and thunder snow for parts of the interior. That was in Penticton earlier, tracking over to Revelstoke. And this is what's bringing the fresh snow to the highways. So all of this after high snow levels and lots of rain over the past 3 days. So high stream advisories remain in place from the island out towards the Kootenays. And this is what we will keep an eye on over the next days, weeks, and even months as we head into our spring melt. Dan, I did say I had a good looking Wednesday in the forecast, so I'll be back with more details.
We can't wait to see you fulfill the pledge.
I'll be here.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Well, it is time to get your walking or running shoes ready. Starting tomorrow, you can register for this year's Terry Fox Run. It was 43 years ago tomorrow that Port Coquitlam's Terry Fox started the Marathon of Hope to raise money for cancer research. To mark that occasion, the Terry Fox Foundation is launching their new campaign called Dear Terry. People can get a limited edition T-shirt. In fact, it was endorsed and worn by, yep, there he is, Vancouver-born Ryan Reynolds, who also helped design it. It's to pay tribute to all the people who wrote to Terry during and after his run.
In big mail bags were arriving at Mom and Dad's house, and I think it's something like over 50,000 pieces of cards and letters, and probably every single one of them started Dear Terry.
This year's run will take place on September 17th. For more information on registering, you can check out their website there, terryfox.org. The Canadian musical icon has canceled all his concert dates for the rest of the year. A statement says Gordon Lightfoot is experiencing some health-related issues without going into specifics. The 84-year-old singer-songwriter was slated to play more than a dozen shows in the U.S. and Canada beginning this month. It's unclear when or if those dates will be rescheduled. Lightfoot is a member of both the Canadian and U.S. Songwriters Hall of Fame. He's penned such classics as Sundown, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, and If You Could Read My Mind. They may be a bit squeamish to look at, but a video posted online has some questioning BC's province-wide ban on rat poison. After the break, a rat detective will weigh in. You'll want to hear this. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Thanks for being here. Regina Mayor Sandra Masters has recently weighed in on criticisms of slogans used as part of a tourism rebrand for her city, saying they were a mistake. The city's tourism body renamed itself Experience Regina. The launch included 2 slogans that drew a lot of criticism online for sexualizing the city.
The controversy over the newly rebranded Experience Regina stems from its unofficial slogans, one being the city that rhymes with fun. The tourism group was quick to apologize and remove the language. Regina Mayor Sandra Masters says those slogans were not part of the original brand she was presented on March 7th.
They were sexist and wrong, and they hurt and impacted people, and it's just bad for the city.
The mayor says there was a misstep in the approval process, with a manager unexpectedly away. Regina Exhibition Association Limited, known as REAL, oversees the city's tourism arm. Its board of directors is meeting Thursday night to review exactly what happened. Tim Reed, the CEO of Experience Regina and REAL, says the investigation will evaluate everything, including whether he should resign.
Ultimately, this is my responsibility. And I've certainly suggested I'm open to any conversation they wish to have. I haven't had that conversation right now with anybody, but I certainly regret where we stand. And I also am very accountable to the fact that as a leader, my job is to make sure those things don't happen.
Mayor Masters says overall she likes what she saw originally for Experience Regina, a phrase first made popular in a viral video from 2008. But with international attention focused on the fallout, one marketing and PR expert says it will be tough to come back from.
It's the brand of the destination. So whether you find it funny or humorous or otherwise, did it make you want to go there? Like, did you go to Google and check out the flights to Regina? Probably not.
The Experience Regina campaign cost about $30,000. Neither the mayor nor Reid could say what will happen next. The Real board will, however, brief council on its findings at a later date, most likely in private, as it will involve personnel. Daniela Ponticelli, CBC News, Regina.
A TikTok video of a rat-infested alley in Vancouver's downtown east side is raising questions about whether the province-wide ban on rat poisons is a good idea. The video, titled "I Crashed a Rat Party," was uploaded a week ago and so far has gotten more than 100,000 views. It's not clear when it was taken, but it has sparked a debate about the permanent province-wide ban on rodenticide, which came into effect in January. For more on this video and what's in it, we're now joined by Kaylee Byers. She is the senior scientist at the Pacific Institute on Pathogens, Pandemics, and Society at SFU, and self-proclaimed rat detective.
That's
Good
correct.
to see you again, Kaylee. Thanks so much for joining us. What do you make when you see that video? How unusual is that?
Well, it is shocking, right? You see many, many rats in that video, but it's hard to say how unusual it is. Last time I was on the show, I used to see that number of rats all the time. I used to stake out in alleyways looking for them. So it's not incredibly uncommon. It just kind of depends on where you are.
Now, we've talked about the banning by the provincial government of rodenticide. Is there any causal link between what we're seeing, what you're seeing on the streets in terms of rat populations, and that being banned?
It's really impossible to say, because we don't have the information to actually be able to track rat populations over time. To do that, we would need to know where rats are in the city and how many there are, and actually have numbers before and numbers after. We just don't have that. And so at this point, we can't say.
Is there anything concerning when people see that? For example, health impacts to other animals, to people themselves. What should people take away from the video when they see that?
Well, you've got a lot in that question. Rats do cause a number of health risks for people, so they can spread diseases to people, and they can also negatively impact our mental health. So certainly when we see that, it can be upsetting. But on the flip side, rodenticides can have unanticipated impacts too. So when we put out rodenticides, it doesn't just stay in the rats, it gets into other wildlife, right? So it's actually, rat management is an incredibly complex issue.
How do we effectively manage the rat population then? Is there a balance between not using the rodenticide, and now that it's being banned, and going in and setting traps? Like, is there a solution here?
Well, at the Vancouver Rat Project, we talk a lot about a whole system approach to rats. So that means instead of this current approach that we've had, honestly, for centuries, trap, kill, repeat, see a rat, remove a rat, it's actually thinking about how rats interact with all aspects of our society and managing rats in all of those areas, in our buildings and infrastructure, our housing, waste management, backyard gardens, water availability. So integrating rat management within urban planning.
Can natural predators or what are the natural predators, I should say, of rats, and can they be used in some way to control the population?
So urban predators can certainly prey on rats, and you might have coyotes, birds of prey feeding on rats, and that's one of the big problems with rodenticide, right, is that it doesn't just stay in the rats, it gets into the other wildlife. So they can be used to manage rats, but having an idea of what those numbers would need to look like to do so sustainably is really unknown.
When people see this video, and it can cause them to have the willies, certainly, because it's a lot of rats, is it realistic to think that we can manage this effectively and so that people don't see rats, or that we get rid of them, or is it how much of it is where we have to actually just learn to live with them?
Dan, great question. I mean, that I think is the number one thing, is in a city, what's our goal? Is it that we don't want to see any rats? Because that's probably a fairly unrealistic goal. They're everywhere, there's lots of them. Or is our goal to reduce risks associated with rats? In that case, it's less about removing the rat as it is about managing our interactions with them. So I do think that thinking of rats as wildlife, as part of our cities, will go a long way to thinking about holistic, long-term rat management.
Do you think we will get to that point?
You know, depends on the day you ask me. I'm a bit of an optimist. I think we can do it, but we need everybody to be involved. We've got lots of good community efforts here, so I think we could do it.
All right. Kaylee Byers, we appreciate your time and your expertise. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Brought together through an abusive ex, a group of women from communities across Canada shine a light on how the system has failed to prevent repeat abusers, how they found each other, and what they say Canada needs after this.
And with me is Ted Reynolds, and it's our lucky chore to be with you to describe for you the largest man-made non-nuclear blast in history, in peacetime history. Now, Ted, I wonder if you'd like to locate our position more completely, please. You bet, Bill. Good morning. Out beyond us, you can see the villain of the piece, or the hero of the piece, as the case may be. Yonder lies Ripple Rock, 7,000 feet from us. Where is it? Well, for the benefit of those of you from other than the coast of British Columbia, this map will perhaps locate us for you. You can see the U.S.-Canada border here and Vancouver. Ripple Rock is 125 air miles from Vancouver. Actually, it's right in the middle of this target here. The black dot is the village of Campbell River, which is the closest bit of real population to us. Right in the middle of this circle, that's 10 miles north of Campbell River, lies Ripple Rock. So funny-looking place we're in is our bunker. You can see it's pretty well constructed, and as you can also see, it's just about as full of people as it can possibly be. Down at the far end, the CBC radio commentators, film cameramen by the store, then our colleague from the French network, Bill and I, and just over here, the two cameras. Of course, you can't see the camera that's taking the pictures, but there's the other one, and out on its snout, that great long snorkel that sticks out there is a 25-inch lens, and that'll pretty well put Ripple Rock right smack in the middle of your living room when it goes up or out or sideways or whatever it's going to do in 2 minutes and 15 seconds right now. How about the countdown, Ted? Well, the countdown, Bill, will be your baby. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
One of the key underpinnings of last month's Mass Casualty Commission final report was that more needs to be done to stop intimate partner violence in this country. Nearly half of women in Canada will experience some form of it. As the CBC's Katie Nicholson tells us, some alleged victims are calling for a national registry of offenders. And a warning, this story does contain information that may be upsetting to some viewers.
Making a brew?
You have a tank, you drop stuff in the tank.
A couple's playful games night.
Feeding fish. Yeah.
But Amy Graves says the reality was much darker, especially the day she ended her relationship with Mike Poirier.
He pinned me to the wall, started choking me, gouging out my eyes, and he picked up the screwdriver, held it to my neck and said, "Do you want to die today?"
Graves says she managed to escape and took her allegations to RCMP. Poirier was charged with assault, choking, and forcible confinement.
I heard he's here.
And as Graves' 3-year journey through the justice system began, she got some unexpected help.
You don't know me and have no reason to, but I'm Mike's first ex-wife.
Mike Poirier has 3 ex-wives in Ontario, Newfoundland, and Yukon. They all describe tumultuous and abusive relationships. Some of those allegations supported by court records. And they all found one another over the years. They even tried to warn Graves about Poirier through this direct message. Her relationship over, Graves finally responded.
They helped pull me out of that trauma cycle. I think that abuse cycle, I didn't know what it felt like, feeling like you're crazy and doubting yourself. So they helped me pull me out of that haze.
Graves started to pay it forward, warning other women about Poirier on social media, even as he racked up more convictions stemming from his interactions with women.
It seems like there was a hole in the system somehow, especially with online dating.
Graves and the ex-wives believe there should be a national intimate partner violence registry.
If women living across the country can find each other to share information in a case about domestic violence on social media, it's surprising that we can't ask the same of our police.
But, says this law professor, it might be hard to create a national registry after the Supreme Court ruled the sex offender registry was unconstitutional last fall.
The government would have to carefully tailor it to avoid running into some of those same problems that the sex offender registry had.
As for Graves, she never got her day in court. The charges against Poirier were dropped in January when she couldn't testify because she was in hospital. Through his lawyer, Mike Poirier declined comment. There is currently a warrant out for him in BC for criminally harassing another woman. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
The Ukrainian Prime Minister has come to Ottawa, a sign of Canada's importance to Kyiv in the face of Russia's invasion. And as Rafi Bujikanian shows us, amid recent revelations of Ukraine's vulnerabilities.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ukraine's Prime Minister met with Justin Trudeau an ocean away from the war, the reality of Russia's invasion inescapable.
We need more ammunition, we need more weaponry, we need more military equipment. Canada supply and support us in supplying many military equipment.
That equipment now includes thousands of new guns and millions of rounds of new ammunition. A signal of how extreme the need is for even basic weaponry ahead of an anticipated Ukrainian counteroffensive. Leaked documents from the Pentagon suggest it could face serious challenges. They reportedly showed depleted stocks of ammunition and strained air defense systems. Data that CBC News has not verified, but that has triggered a U.S. government investigation and a lot of concern.
The one card that Putin still has to play is the Air Force. Then the escalation that we don't talk about is basically strategic bombing.
It is adding urgency to reinforcements Canada has promised.
We are doing whatever is possible to get it there as soon as possible because, of course, we are sending other supplies as well. So it is en route.
As Ottawa continues to arm Ukraine, it may have faced an assault of its own on the digital front this week. Pro-Russian hackers claimed responsibility for temporarily shutting down the websites of the Canadian Senate and the Prime Minister.
Russia being able to bring down an official Government of Canada webpage for a few hours is in no way going to dissuade us from our unshakable support of Ukraine.
Ukraine's prime minister is counting on that support, both here and in Washington, also on his agenda, as the U.S. vows it won't waver, despite the concerns raised by the apparent Pentagon leak. Rafi Wujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
The CEO and members of the board of directors for the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation are stepping down. As Catherine Cullen explains, the resignations come after the charity became embroiled in controversy over alleged foreign interference linked to the Chinese government.
The Trudeau Foundation is a foundation with which I have absolutely no intersection.
The Prime Minister has long tried to distance himself from the foundation named after his father. But lately, politics still looms large over the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation.
We weren't partisan. We weren't promoting a particular vision.
The foundation insists on its independence. The nonprofit gives money to support academics, but one donation has it entangled in concerns around foreign interference. It came from this man, Zhang Bin, an advisor to the Chinese government. The Globe and Mail reported the $200,000 pledge was an effort by officials in Beijing to sway Trudeau, though Trudeau's work with the foundation ended before he became prime minister. Still, it's messy because the man who was the Trudeau Foundation CEO back then was appointed by the government recently to write a report about interference in the 2021 election, including the actions of the Chinese government, prompting political reaction like this.
He hired the former CEO of the same Trudeau Foundation that had received the money from China to write a report about it.
And the former Governor General that Trudeau appointed to advise him on foreign interference is also a member of the foundation. Today, the CEO and board resigned en masse, saying, "The circumstances created by the politicization of the foundation have made it impossible to continue with the status quo." Pierre Poilievre tweeted out a call for an investigation into the foundation, but the Prime Minister is pointing the finger at Poilievre.
I have no doubt that the Trudeau Foundation, like foundations and charities that conservative politicians have attacked in the past, will continue to do the excellent work that it will do.
The Prime Minister didn't directly answer whether all this politicization would stop him from making future appointments with ties to the foundation. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Police in the U.S. have released body cam footage of the mass shooting in Louisville, Kentucky that killed 5 people and wounded 8 more. It is graphic, and we are only showing you parts of it to preserve the dignity of those who were killed. Paul Hunter explains.
The police body cam video underlines the tension and threat of the moment. CBC News is showing just this brief segment from it. One of these officers will be wounded by gunfire seconds after these images. Another mass killing, this one Monday at a bank in downtown Louisville, Kentucky, with multiple dead, multiple wounded. And as the mourning now grows in yet another American city, so too the so often repeated calls for change. There have been so many mass shootings in this country lately, nearly 150 so far this year. The calls for change have seemingly gone to a new level.
If you are a person of faith and you want to give us your thoughts and your prayers, we want them and we need them. Our community is hurting. But we need policies in place that will keep this from happening again.
For 15 years, I've cared for victims of violence and gunshot wounds. And people say I'm tired, but I'll be answered. It's more than tired. I'm weary. There's only so many times you can walk into a room and tell someone they're not coming home tomorrow. And it just breaks your heart. When you hear someone screaming, "Mommy," or "Daddy," it just becomes too hard day in and day out to be able to do that.
Police in Louisville have gone through the shooter's home, trying as ever to get at the big question, why? The shooter was an employee at the bank. Why did he walk in and, say police, target those he worked with? The gun he used, say police, an assault-style rifle purchased a week ago legally at a local gun shop, just like so many other such guns in a country where scenes like this have become numbingly familiar. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Still in the U.S., access to abortion is back in the spotlight, and the debate this time is over a pill. It's been available for more than 2 decades, but as Katie Simpson explains, its future is unclear after a Texas court ruling last week.
The American abortion rights movement is bracing for yet another possible blow, anxiously awaiting the next court decision on whether the most used abortion pill in the country will be effectively banned. At some medical facilities, patients with medication abortions scheduled for next week are getting calls to come in now.
They're scrambling to change their schedules to get in to see us earlier.
The Biden administration has filed an appeal to pause the ban on mifepristone that's set to take effect as early as Friday, after Trump-appointed judge Matthew Kacsmaryk said the FDA did not properly approve the drug 23 years ago, ordering its removal from the market.
And on the abortion pill ruling, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are it's completely out of bounds what the judge did.
The issue is likely going to be decided by the Supreme Court in a lengthy legal fight, all of it prompting some state leaders to start stockpiling abortion pills.
Extremist judges have made it clear that they won't stop at any one particular drug or service. So it's going to ensure that New Yorkers will continue to have access to medication abortion no matter what.
A nationwide ban on this drug would mark the second significant win for anti-abortion activists in less than a year.
We won Roe versus Wade after a 50-year protracted battle in the courts. We see nothing less with this. We will win. It might take time, but we're going to win.
The Biden administration has asked the appeals court to decide by noon on Thursday whether it will block the decision from the Texas judge while litigation plays out. If they lose, some Democrats and at least one Republican have floated the idea of ignoring the ban. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
The U.S. president arrived in Belfast tonight as Northern Ireland marks 25 years of peace. Biden was welcomed by the UK Prime Minister as the region deals with a rise in political turmoil over its deal with the EU that limits barriers at the border with the Republic of Ireland to the south. Biden is expected to meet with local leaders in support of that deal. Tens of thousands of doctors in Britain, meanwhile, launched a 4-day strike today in a bitter pay dispute with the government. They're known as junior doctors and do the work residents do here in Canada. As Dominic Velitis reports, critics warn of unparalleled disruption to that country's publicly funded healthcare system.
Overworked. Underpaid. Overworked. Underpaid.
The equivalent of a junior doctor in Canada would be a resident doctor, so someone who's completed a medical degree and is continuing on-the-job training in a hospital or other clinical setting. The reason they're striking is about money. They want a 35% pay increase. That, they say, to make up for the 15 years of below-inflation pay rises they have received.
Our ask has not changed because all we're looking to do is restore the pay that juniors have lost. But at every opportunity that we might think we can break through, it seems they have another precondition, another hurdle.
Health bosses, meanwhile, say the knock-on effect is going to be severe for patients. It's believed more than 250,000 appointments and operations may be cancelled as a result, with some hospitals saying up to half of planned treatment is now affected. So huge disruption that will likely take the health service weeks to recover from. Philip Fisher is one patient who's had his surgery cancelled as a result of this strike.
I was gutted. I ended up crying because pain, unbearable. Now, what do I do? What do I do now? I just have to wait. Why is it cancelled? Who's accountable? How many more people are like me?
Blackstone, pay the bills! Blackstone, pay the bills!
The government, meanwhile, says calls for a 35% pay increase are unrealistic. It says the strike threatens patient safety, and they've accused junior doctors of timing the walkout deliberately to maximise disruption, which comes just after the Easter break. The junior doctors say they have called on ministers to come to the table and negotiate pay. The government, though, says that's not going to happen until they call off this strike and abandon demands for a 35% pay rise. So, no end in sight to this dispute, which, as I say, is causing massive disruption for tens of thousands of patients. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, London.
Stunning images from Russia's Far East today after one of that country's largest active volcanoes spewed ash on nearby communities. Resident seismologist and our meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe will have more right after this.
This is what Ames Leslie loves to do. A firefighter for more than half his life, he's now undergoing chemotherapy.
As soon as you hear that C word, that cancer word, your mind just goes, right? And you don't hear anything after that.
Last summer, the World Health Organization found that firefighting directly contributes to cancer risk. Firefighters breathe in toxins. Their skin absorbs them too.
All our firefighters have their own lockers. They have wildland firefighting gear.
And this equipment, even it's part of the problem.
All manufacturers claim that they have the best gear, but it's all loaded with chemicals that are killing firefighters. The gear is supposed to protect us, not kill us.
The Weyburn Fire Department is a leader in Saskatchewan when it comes to cancer prevention. For example, it stocks extra gear to swap out, but even it falls short. There are no showers.
They're cross-contaminating their vehicle, their house, their laundry machine.
Lee says the lack of money is stopping them and other departments from doing more. And if a firefighter gets cancer, workers' compensation varies across the country. This Regina firefighter is waiting for biopsy results from a mass on his thyroid. If it's thyroid cancer, he won't be covered under workers' compensation in his home province. That's because it's not one of the cancers Saskatchewan presumes to be tied to firefighting.
If I lived 3 hours down the road in Brandon, Manitoba, I would be covered. So the discrepancy is frustrating and not fair.
The types of cancer covered by workers' compensation varies province to province.
It really bothered me that, how could someone who's doing the same job in one province be covered, but not in another province?
This Liberal MP introduced a bill now making its way through the Senate to push for parity in workers' compensation coverage across Canada, in both prevention and treatment. Nicholas Frew, CBC News, Regina.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back.
And that's what empowered nations and empowered people to just literally steal land.
This is a consequence of your actions!
And it's time to give land back.
Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
A new crab fishing season gets underway this week in Newfoundland and Labrador, but some fishermen are staying ashore. The reason? The price. A pound of crab will fetch them $2.20. Last year, it was going for closer to $8 a pound. Chris O'Neill Yates has more on what's behind that drop that's keeping some boats tied up and fishermen fed up.
At the wharf in St. John's, fishermen say they won't be catching snow crab because it's just not worth it.
Anything is better than $2.20, but you know, we can't just accept crumbs now.
Chad Waterman says the entire region is being hurt by the low price of snow crab that's been set this season, down more than $5 per pound in the last year.
We're talking, you know, millions and millions of dollars of a drop in table, you know, for everybody, and you know, it trickles right through the whole community, right across our own Newfoundland.
Most of the crab caught in Canadian waters goes to the U.S. 2 years ago, demand and prices skyrocketed.
Crab was like an ideal product for people to eat at home during the pandemic.
But that all changed as pandemic restrictions were lifted and people went out more, says this seafood market analyst.
Prices were too high and it didn't have the same consumer appeal.
If processors and the union can't agree on a price every year, it's set by a panel appointed by the provincial government. The Fisheries Workers Union says this year's price is a catastrophe for the industry.
The largest crab fishery in the world. We got to that point. And how could that turn into impoverishing harvesters and plant workers? And it's incredible.
The union president says the crab pricing system is flawed and he wants something done.
I'm asking for a meeting with the Premier. I'm hoping to get it tomorrow. And if we don't get it tomorrow, then we'll be taking other political actions.
As for the fishermen, they're prepping their boats in hope of a better price.
We're just getting ready now and playing the waiting game, I guess, and see what's going to happen going forward.
Waterman says fishermen have agreed not to fish, and unless the price improves, these boats will stay right where they are, tied up. Chris O'Neill Yates, CBC News, St. John's.
Stunning pictures out of Russia to show you now after one of the country's most active volcanoes erupted, sending ash far across the sky. Take a look. Local geophysicists say this cloud of ash spewed by the Shilovich volcano covered 108,000 square kilometers, smothering villages in gray dust, triggering an aviation warning. Lava flows tumbled from the volcano, melting snow and prompting a warning of mud flows along a nearby highway. About 300,000 people live on Russia's vast Kamchatka Peninsula, which juts into the Pacific Ocean northeast of Japan. Meteorologist and seismologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Before we get to that, to say this volcano is active is a bit of an understatement.
Yeah, no kidding, Dan. This eruption continues to spew ash, upwards of 10 kilometers into the atmosphere, which is why we're watching those aviation alerts, as well as general wind flow. Wanted to show you the Kamchatka Peninsula. This is actually right on the Ring of Fire, the same one that then runs over the west side of North America. This is one of the most seismically active regions in the world. There are 30 active volcanoes on this peninsula, and this eruption is likely the largest eruption on this peninsula in satellite era. So since the 60s, and we're still, here it is right there. I was kind of hoping to catch it in visible satellite, and I think I can just see some of the ash streaming off. So very much an active situation, that much ash and that high into the atmosphere. We will be keeping an eye on whether it is in the stratosphere, on whether it hitches a ride across the Pacific through the jet stream. We'll keep an eye on that for BC's forecast. I will be watching closely. Here in Metro Vancouver right now, we are watching for the showers. And check out the strait. The showers are crossing as we speak. If you look west, you can see those dark clouds. So showers tonight for Metro Vancouver, thanks to this spinning low that is sinking south tomorrow. So we are looking at a very sunny and almost seasonal Wednesday for the South Coast. It doesn't last long, though. Thursday, we get increasing cloud. At this point, it looks like it remains mainly dry for Thursday, Friday, just not as sunny as the Wednesday we will get. And there is a bigger Pacific system set to move in just in time for the weekend, just the way we like it, the soggy weekends. One more on top for us coming up. Tomorrow, though, a nice break from the active weather you're seeing tonight across the southern interior. Prince George looking to get a 10 tomorrow. tomorrow. Williams Lake as well, 8 down towards the Okanagan, and that active weather should ease for you as we head into tomorrow's forecast. So that's Western Canada. We are on the north side of the jet stream, but the jet stream has lifted across much of the country. Wanted to show you the current temperatures tonight, where we're at a 19 Toronto for the Jays home opener, and look at these temperatures. Hitting the mid-20s in places like downtown Toronto, Saskatchewan, Alberta. So a nice little warm-up for everyone east of the Rockies. We didn't get it, but we've sent them all our cherry blossom photos. So I think they're just trying to make up for it. And the warmth will last across much of the country for the next couple of days. Of course, we'll be watching for spring flooding everywhere from the Red River in Manitoba out towards the East Coast. And we've already got our eyes on that here with our high stream advisories, I should say. Okay, breaking down the 7-day, 10 tomorrow. I think that's our sunniest day this week. Notice our overnights start to recover. They've been a little on the cool side, hence those chilly starts. Clouds for Thursday, Friday. A little bit of uncertainty as that low brings in a few more clouds than we were originally thinking. Maybe a stray shower on Thursday. I'll keep you posted. Saturday and Sunday, yeah, it's another washout before we look to see hopefully some sun return on Monday. All in all, Dan, it's wet.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And I need to correct myself. It's pronounced Shivalutch, which means smoking mountain.
Very good name. Yes, apt name.
No kidding. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
An Edmonton man may think twice before getting too involved with a piece of public art again. Firefighters and police were called after someone became stuck in a prison of silver globes. CBC's Wallace Snowden explains.
Crews were called to the Talus Dome last night after someone walking by noticed a strange sight. A man was inside the mound of large silver spheres with no way out. Connor Schwint was on a post-Easter dinner run past the sculpture when he stopped and pulled out his camera.
Out for a run, I see this commotion with the firefighters, flashing lights. I pull up, couldn't believe it. Some dude is stuck inside the Talus balls. Look at this.
3 fire crews, including a technical rescue team, were involved in the call, and it was not a speedy rescue. To extricate the man, firefighters had to cut into the installation and squeeze him out.
I saw it on, I don't know, Facebook or something first that they were down here rescuing a guy. Apparently he climbed up top someplace, found a hole big enough to slither into and slithered down inside. And then he couldn't get out.
Police say a 26-year-old was charged with 1 count of mischief over $5,000, then released. No injuries were reported. The installation has proven divisive among Edmontonians for years, and word of the incident had people talking once again about this often polarizing piece of art. But many were surprised that someone had attempted to get so up close and personal with it.
I've heard that there's a lot of spiders and spider webs in there, so that's more than enough to keep me away from it.
The Talus Dome is part of the City of Edmonton's public art collection. No word on what it will cost to repair the damages. Wallace Snowden, CBC News, Edmonton.
What we're getting is a lot of fresh air, great exercise. It's stimulating in so many ways.
The sport's soaring in popularity. After the break, a look at one BC community's embrace of disc golf. Stick around.
We have a lot of great fishermen from Broken Head. You know, we have a lot of events like treaty days, and a lot of things that people were talking about was, you know, what can we do to fundraise for our community, for our youth initiatives, and to support our powwow that we have every year and our treaty day events. No tents. We want to level the playing field, so no electronics, no devices. We want to have the Iron Woman and the Iron Men out here today fishing in our derby. We may take some considerations in for next year.
Well, I like to go ice fishing with my son, and we go pretty much all over. We travel all spring. We go somewhere. Yeah, it's something I want to do I'm doing in my retirement. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
He uses a stick to catch the fish.
Literally a stick. A lot of people pop can like the old days. Pop can with a line on it, and you know it doesn't take much to catch a fish out of the water. I know we have some fishermen out there in their 80s right now because they're from our community. So yeah, We got some older fishermen, we got kids. My daughter's out there. She would not allow me to have the derby without her being involved, and she's 11 years old. So there's a lot of people out there right now that are fishing and looking to get ready to pull in that big one. I'm excited for them.
Coming to win the grand prize. Have 2 holes here. And yeah, pretty exciting. There's a lot of people out here. I never expected this many people.
Well, the largest prize that we're doing today is the 20,000 longest pickerel. Is going to be that's going to be the one that gets to carry the title till next year as our biggest fish.
A big pike.
Oh, whoa!
Oh, is that a pike?
Yeah.
We got another fish coming in. That's a big pike. That 12-inch pike just got bumped out.
28 and a quarter.
28 and a quarter incher takes the biggest pike. So 28 and a quarter is the biggest pike to beat.
Every event that we have, especially for the ice fishing, just gets bigger and bigger. So look forward to next year. It could be bigger prizes and maybe more prizes to be given out in terms of first, second, maybe to 10 in terms of cash prizes. But today, really, really impressed with the support that we have coming out today and supporting us.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
The Surrey Board of Trade's Top 25 Under 25 Awards returns on May 3rd. Celebrate Surrey's role models and get your tickets today at businessinsurrey.com. And join CBC Vancouver's Gloria Makarenko at the annual Because Mothers Matter Awards on May 10th. Celebrate women's extraordinary achievements at this year's event. Learn more at mothersmattercentre.ca.
More than 80 giant tortoises have been released into the wild in the Galapagos Islands, part of an endangered species breeding program in Ecuador. The Hood Island hatchlings were born and raised at a conservation park. The little ones fitted with a microchip to monitor their travels, and they took a helicopter ride to their new natural habitat in those islands. 250 more babies will be released when they're a little bit older. The breeding operation has been massively successful. It started with 15 tortoises 50 years ago and has produced 3,000. Disc golf has become one of the fastest growing sports in North America. The Professional Disc Golf Association says at least 10 million people have taken it up. And as the CBC's Corey Bullock reports, it is a massive hit in one East Kootenay community.
It's a morning ritual. While most might greet the day with work or school, this group of seniors is getting together to play the game of disc golf. Every day, rain, snow, or shine. They're known as the chain rattlers.
What we're getting is a lot of fresh air, great exercise. It's stimulating in so many ways.
The group began playing 3 years ago. They picked up steam during the pandemic. And, according to the Professional Disc Golf Association, that's when the sport saw the most growth it's ever seen.
Well, it was growing steadily, year after year, which was great. But the last 3 or 4 years, it's gone boom, and we're just doing everything we can to keep up with the growth. We have had as many people join the PDGA the last 2 years as we did in the first 40 years.
Brian Clarkson and his comrades share their skills with other seniors. They also teach clinics at the elementary schools in town. For most, it's a chance to spend time with friends and get some exercise.
Oh, the camaraderie is the best. How we build each other up, how we support each other, how we teach each other and point out things to each other.
I have an artificial hip. I've had it since '82.
and I'm able to do this kind of thing. I think most seniors can do it, even if they have a minor disability.
For others, it's a love of the game.
You can't just toss a frisbee, as like I say. You often have to shape the shot, and you have to do it very intentionally.
The group typically plays at Idlewild Park, one of 4 courses in Cranbrook. It's 18 holes and takes about an hour and a half to play. For the chain rattlers, it's home. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
Also fun with a beverage, like other kinds of golf. And we have some great news for a colleague of ours. Just before we go tonight, our Anita Bath, who's taking a bit of time off, has won Best Local News Anchor tonight at the Canadian Screen Awards. Anita, well done. That is awesome from everybody here. Nicely done. And that's our show for tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch the newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, and on Instagram, YouTube, and our website, cbc.ca/BC. Leanne Young will have your late local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. Good night.